Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending on where you are and when you are. So, today we're going to be getting into two different cases, one that's very old and one that's very new. So, I hope you'll enjoy the coverage I have and enjoy being with me on this journey that we take this evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it is for wherever you are. So let's get right into it. We have the first case we'll be discussing is that of Carolyn Merricks. This happened back in 1984, and this happened in St. Petersburg, Florida. And a bit of background on Carolyn Merricks. She was known as Bunny Chandra whilst working as a Playboy bunny at the Suncoast Playboy Club in St. Pete, Florida. While she was there, she was nominated for Bunny of the Year at the club in 1983, and as a result of that, she was uh, flown to Los Angeles for a pictorial in Playboy, and the woman who actually took the picture of Carolyn or Bunny Chandra herself was murdered as well. And we'll discuss that further later and how clearly dangerous it was to be a Playboy bunny or to be associated with Playboy as a woman, because the mortality rate seems so high for a profession that you wouldn't expect to be so potentially fatal. It's certainly there's certainly a lot of deaths linked to Playboy of young women. As I've discussed in my live on the dark side of Playboy, this is very much a continuation of that. And we will not be leaving the Playboy topic anytime soon, because it's one that I'm very deeply interested in, the true crime things related to it and the kind of murky world that that exposes. But at the same time, I know that a lot of other people are as well. So it's something that, I enjoy covering, but I know that others enjoy hearing about as well. Um, so yeah, we're going to get right into it. She was well known in Florida due to featuring in Playboy promo material, and so this is like infomercials and commercials for the club and for various Playboy projects. So at the club, so for those of you who don't know, Playboy, the magazine, used to own a lot of nightclubs. They'd have like Playboy nightclubs in major cities all over the world. There was like one in London. Obviously, lots in major US cities as well. I think they had one in Paris. I'd be surprised if they didn't. Um, but yeah, they had them everywhere. And she was one of the first black servers that they had at the club in Florida. And she was certainly one of the customers' favorites and also a favorite among her other Playboy bunnies, the servers there. Who everyone had a very high opinion of her and good things to say about her. So seemingly she didn't have any enemies that anyone could figure out. Because all that I've heard in my research of her is people speaking highly of her and speaking how intelligent she was and how personable she was. So from just the base of what I've been looking into to do with her, it didn't seem like there was anyone who had any clear motive to do her harm. But obviously, we'll get into my possible theories later on as to who that may be, or what their motivations may be. We're just giving background at this point in time. And if you're listening and watching, please say hello and let me know if you're enjoying the show or not. And in 1984, July the 23rd, she was found murdered in her home in her apartment in South St. Petersburg, Florida. Uh, and there were no signs of forced entry, but there were signs of a struggle before she was stabbed to death. So, based on that, either she left the door open, which is unlikely based off what you'll hear about her, that she was a very cautious woman. She was very careful about safety and security. So, I doubt she would have left the door open or anything like that. So there was no obvious signs of forced entry, but it doesn't mean that someone wasn't able to get in without there being obvious signs. Um, but there was a struggle in the house, but I certainly do lean on the side of she knew her killer and let them in. I think that that's a very big possibility, but based on, you know, the lack of the being a visible breaking and entry, and also the fact that everybody says she was a very cautious woman, that like she wouldn't have just let in a stranger at random, that it would probably more than likely have been someone she knew quite well as well. And primary suspects that the police initially looked into were all incarcerated at the time. So this would have involved men with a history of like violent crimes against women in the general area. So guys who had a record of sexual assaults, violent sexual assaults, physical harm to women, those types of people were all looked into, but their main suspects were all had alibis of being in actual prison or jail at the time of the murder. So the investigators were quite at a dead end. However, they also looked into neighbours, people she may have known formerly from the Playboy Club or from her job that she had at the time of her death, where she was working at the yacht club, because the Playboy Club in St. Pete had closed in '83, a year before her murder. So she was working at a yacht club, and they looked into people at the yacht club who used to work at the Playboy Club or who used to go to the Playboy Club, as well as neighbors in her apartment complex. But they were never able to forensically put anybody at the scene. They had her from the her murderer, but they were never able to link it to anybody because the I don't think that the technology was really there yet in '84. It was getting there, but it wasn't there. And obviously nowadays it's way more effective and evolved than it was then. So this is why this case has been in the headlines recently. I shared it on my community page because police have reopened the investigation, and they are using new testing to try and ID the killer using the hair found at the scene. So they're using genealogy testing, like related to sites like 23andMe, to see if anyone, if the suspect or anyone related to the suspect has put their DNA into the system, that this could help narrow them down. And obviously this has been done to identify several other killers, most notably Brian Koberger from the recent Idaho 4 case that I haven't done a live on, but I certainly followed intensely over on ATS's channel and Valerie Knox's channel and lots of other people's channels. I've been following it. And there was a struggle, like I said, and she was stabbed many times, but she fought a hard fight. She didn't take it lying down. She certainly fought back against her attacker, which is great because it means that probably as a result of that, she may have tried to rip out his hair or rip some of his hair, and it fell, and then now that's gave the police a chance to actually ID the killer. Hi Ava, glad you're listening and enjoying. Yeah, I wonder what you're cooking. Yeah, I had pizza this evening and waffles. Not the sweet American kind, the potato based European kind of waffles. Not the fun kind of waffles. They are nice though. They go well as a side with pizza. I would prefer onion rings, but yeah, I would prefer onion rings, but it's all I've got in at the moment. But I'm glad you're enjoying the show. And sorry I cut out for a second. I just got an alert on my phone, and I was trying to clear it away, and it just took me off stream for a second. But I'm back. So yeah, she fought on, and the fact that she fought on against her attacker meant that hair was pulled out. That we now have this little morsel of DNA that we can use to potentially ID the guy. Because you look at so many other cases where the guy's found so many years later, like the Golden State Killer. which that whole case I really want to cover in detail. Cases I find the most fascinating are the ones that are solved 40, 50 years later. You know what I mean? Like, there's just something about that where, the family, they've still got family, maybe brothers and sisters still alive, maybe even the parent, if it's of a younger child or something like that. And you can actually give them that closure when they may have just given up hope long and long ago. And it's such a nice thing to be able to show that, like, even if it seems like you're never going to get that closure, you're never going to achieve something, and it's so out of reach that the authorities still can pull through, and that private investigators and sleuths can still pull through and get results in the end, even for something that's as old as this case, that's 40 odd years old, over 40 years old, but still there's a killer out there, and still Carolyn Merricks deserves justice, because I'm sure she wasn't the first, or I'm sure she wasn't the last person that he harmed. If it was a he, anyway, I'm fairly confident it was a he, but it may have been a female. We're open minded on this channel, and women are just as likely or able to kill as men. But in this kind of scenario, I'm leaning towards a man being the killer. Lasagna Unring sound good. Thanks for the information. I was wondering about this case. Yeah, it's a. I was first introduced to it by watching the Playboy Murders series that Holly Madison, who used to be Hugh Hefner's girlfriend, uh, yeah, she was. I'm not sure if she was his wife. She was his girlfriend. The other one, uh, Crystal Hefner, was his wife, but she was his girlfriend for a long time. And I guess in some places, because it was so long, they would be considered common law husband and wife. But yeah, they were together, and she obviously not anymore, and because he's dead. But Holly did a series talking about murders related to the Playboy brand, and I was just astounded by it all. The fact that, like I said earlier in the live, uh, this is a profession that you like, modeling, and that you wouldn't expect would have such a high mortality rate. Uh, this isn't drug dealing. This isn't bank robbery as a job, or as a cop or a soldier. You're a model. You know what I mean? Like, I think models don't expect to have so many dangers. You know what I mean? And for um, their lives to be potentially in so much danger, uh, because there is so many cases linked to Playboy of ex-playmate bunnies, or girlfriends of half, ex-girlfriends of half, or women that went to parties that ended up dead. So many cases linked or connected to Playboy. It's obscene. And it really points to there being some kind of dark, either underbelly or potential curse related to this, or some it just, for whatever reason, can, you know these women who are, so beautiful, can attract, deluded, fanatics, stalkers, and they just go crazy. But it just doesn't add up to me. I agree, Ava. It doesn't add up to me at all, because, like, there's like, we don't hear about obviously there's a dark side of Victoria's Secret, Les Wexner being tied in with Epstein and the trafficking there, but you don't have a bunch of Victoria's Secret models who have wound up dead, murdered. Sure, there are some, if I look into it, but I don't think that the numbers are going to be anywhere near the numbers connected to women to do with Playboy. Like, I think that there's something more to it that we're not seeing, and I'm pretty desperate to uncover it. Because that's what I do. I'm a sleuth. I enjoy, shining light onto darkness. I think it's something that needs to be done. And, like, I'm not doing it for any kind of aggrandizement or financial remuneration. Is that right? Remuneration? I think that's probably right. Or financial gain would be probably a better word to say. I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it, and I think it's what's right, you know. And I do what I enjoy doing, and that's what motivates me in life, not profit or aggrandizement. It's just joy, sheer joy. And obviously, these topics can be difficult to discuss. But if I don't talk about them, if nobody talks about them, it's gonna be easy for serial killers and others to get away with crime. You know, if people don't try and shine a light on it, you know, it's faded in obscurity or illusion. It's not something that we can see or handle or deal with. So I certainly think that there is some kind of either curse or dark side to Playboy. Either these women who have ended up murdered have seen too much or seen something and then they've been murdered. Um, but who knows? And this can also point into what we now know about all the stuff to do with Epstein. That in these elite circles, there are things that go on that they don't want just anybody to know about. And if somebody doesn't react in the way that they want them to, in terms of being complicit or accepting it, then there's issues, there's trouble. And we know that, like in these rich like upper class parties where there's cocaine fueled orgies that happened in the 80s and the 70s and now still, I'm sure, that women like Carolyn who were working as Playboy servers, or women in Playboy, or women who were in Victoria's Secret would be recruited to go to these parties and would be expected to do what they were asked by these rich men, rich and powerful men. So who knows? Maybe she saw too much. She saw too much, and that would be the case for many of them. Uh, Certainly, that's what I'm leaning to. And she was only 28 when she was killed, which is a travesty. She had a whole life ahead of her, and she was actually the Playboy Club that she had worked at had closed the year before her murder. So she had been working at a yacht club when she was killed. As I mentioned earlier, the police uh, like interviewed people from the yacht club, and that's again, a yacht club is another setting where there's rich clientele, there's rich people around, and they can have these little parties on the side where if you're working there and you're a young woman and you catch these guys' eyes, your boss is certainly going to put pressure on you to go and keep the client happy, keep the customer happy, no matter what. You know what I mean? Like that's what more than likely was hammered into her. Maybe she went to one of these parties and didn't do what was expected of her, and she ran afoul of someone who was very sick and bitter and fragile, and they decided to take their vengeance in their mind out on her for being rejected. So that's another possibility. uh like I said, all that she saw too much. And she was like, as I think I also said earlier, she was but just to recap in case you didn't hear me, Ava, or whoever else is watching and listening, that she was one of the first black servers at the club, and that she was very, very popular amongst the clientele and the other bunnies. She was certainly one that the younger ones, the newer ones, went to for advice, and she would mentor them and things like that. So she was very much well liked and a central part of the running of that club when she was there. And the club quietly closed a year before the murder, so that's obviously why she went and found work at the yacht club. And she was considered very intelligent, and she sadly left behind a 10-year-old son who grew up without his mother in the picture, and being deceased, which is I can't imagine losing your mother as a kid, but losing her at 10 when you're just about to hit puberty as well. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for her son. And she left behind many brothers and sisters as well. She was from a very big family, and they're still alive now, and they're pushing for this. They've pushed for the reopening of the investigation into her murder, and they got it. And the police are very confident with the fact that they still have the hair from the suspect, that they managed to preserve it properly. Thankfully, they didn't mess up like Moscow PD and ruin the evidence and destroy it. They managed to preserve it properly, so now it can be used, hopefully, to ID her killer in some way. And I really am putting my hope and my will into that, projecting that energy out there. And yeah, I completely agree. Avery, he really is a poor guy, and I just can't imagine. And I hope for him, and he's still alive, that he can get that closure, that he can see the monster that did that to his mother put away forever, or even put to death, depending on the sentence. And because I mean, it is Florida, so I'm pretty sure Florida have the death penalty. It's a very conservative state, so I would certainly wager that they do, and I'll have to look into that though. But I'm fairly confident they do. So yeah, hopefully, we're really willing and praying. Whatever you do, I really encourage you to put your faith and your hope that Carolyn's family, her son, can get this moment of justice, and see this monster pay for what he did all them years ago, because he's more than likely still alive. Most men commit murders 20s to 30s. They can do it at any age, but that's the prime age. So if he was, for example, in his 20s at the time, he'll be in his 60s now. So he's more than likely alive still, and he can hopefully be put on trial, and they can get that closure. And thanks, Ava, for letting me know. That's really good of you. So hopefully, yeah. I mean, I am very much in favor of the death penalty when, but I always say, like, when it can be proven beyond reasonable doubt, but no one should technically be convicted unless it can be proven beyond reasonable doubt. And of course, there have been in the past flimsy cases against people that have stuck, and that's wrong and that shouldn't be. But I think with a more accountable legal system and processes of appeals and things like that, so that if there is a mistake, it can be identified and resolved before someone is just immediately put to death, like was done back in the day, which is the case now in the places that have the death penalty. So I am very much in favor of it. I think it very much is a deterrent. I think it's wrong to make the taxpayer fund these monsters who have committed so much damage against society. It has its ups and downs. They use it as a political and personal weapon. I have a personal stance and stake in this. Yeah, I agree. It does have its ups and downs, like with any legislation. And the thing is, it certainly is final. But I'm very much of the belief that it should always be on the cards. That uh, in situations where it's appropriate. But also it shouldn't be given out too liberally either, because there's dangers in that. So I think there has to be a level of precedent to it, and I think context within crime should matter, depending on what they are, of course. For example, I don't think someone should be put to death for like gangland type shootings and killings, because they're people who are drug gangs, killing each other. You know what I mean? I don't think that that's the same as someone, killing someone in complete cold blood. If you're in a gang feud, it's wrong, but you're still, as far as I'm concerned, it's two animals killing each other. But when you're cold blooded and you kill someone who's done absolutely nothing to you, and there's no reason or logic behind it, then I think that justifies the death penalty. But like I said, I don't think that like a gangland killing where two gangsters shooting each other to death. I don't. If one walks away, I don't think that he should be put to death. I don't. I don't think it's the same at all. I think he should do life, but I don't think he should be put to death. I think it should only be for when it's of, you know, there's no reasonable, sound, logical purpose for it, and it's for deviant purposes or for, you know, completely mindless, you know. But yeah, I'm glad we can have these discussions on these topics. In the criminal uses it, kill me and you'll never. That's very true. That's very true, and they certainly do. So you've got to do that balancing act, I think, with anything, and nothing's really black and white in the world. But like I said, I believe that if there is going to be laws, they should be laws that are effective and that are strong, you know, but at the same time that don't completely leave us in bonds of tyranny, you know. So like with anything, you have to do that balancing act. So you're very right, Ava, and you make a lot of good points, and I like that on this channel, that because there is no set agenda here. There is no set. You don't have to be of a certain view to come here. You can be of any view. You know what I mean? All I really ask is that people respect the victims and the families and the survivors and things like that. But anything else, and each other in the chat. But anything else, like I don't care if someone has a completely diametrically opposed view to me and wants to state that. I really enjoy that. Like I've always stressed that on this channel. I think the worst part of YouTube is the true crime channels where it's very culty, where it's like you have to think the way I do or you're out of here. Like that's no way to grow an audience, and living in an echo chamber is no way to live at all. You know, I think having differing views and talking about different views is certainly a good thing, and especially in the world that we live where it's so polarized and people are just shooting each other and blowing each other up over silly things that really in the end don't matter, that won't matter to us when we're dead. I believe in the afterlife, but not everybody does. But like, it won't matter. None of this politics or religion really. These differences will really matter when you're dead. So it's silly letting them consume your life while you're alive. You know, you should always try to converse with other points of views and not live in an echo chamber. I think that's an ideal for living. Thank you. That's all I had for the Carolyn Merrick part, and it takes us nicely to half an hour. So I'll spend about do another half an hour on the Afroman story. And Ava, I hope you'll stick with us for that, and everybody else listening. I hope you'll enjoy us discussing the Afroman story, which is a lot more light-hearted than the sad murder of Carolyn Merricks. But I'll continue the coverage of Carolyn Merricks if there is a breakthrough, and my coverage of Afroman's case will be ongoing because he is currently in court at the moment. He took the stand today, as far as I'm concerned. He did yesterday, and I think he was still on today. I'll have to double check on that. I have to watch all the highlights. I missed them. I missed it live today. I was busy. But Afroman, bit of background on Afroman. He was the guy who wrote the song "Because I Got High," because I got high. You know, I was gonna clean my room, and then I got high. Then I got high. You know that one. Everybody knows that song. Great song. Very very popular. And anyway, on in August 2022, Afroman's home was raided in Colorado, based on. Oh, you're welcome, Ava. I'm glad to be able to give it to you. Yeah, It's something that I hadn't heard about myself up until only a few days ago. So that he was raided, and I had no idea of any of this. So that this is pretty new to me as well. So we're kind of in the same boat here. So back in August 2022, his home was raided based off in Colorado, based off a warrant suspecting him of drug trafficking and kidnapping. However, no charges were filed based off the execution of that warrant, and nothing was found that was, you know, incriminating of Afroman. And Afroman recorded the raid and used the footage for his song Lemon Pound Cake and Will You Help Me Repair My Door? Great titles, by the way, especially Will You Help Me Repair My Door? I think that's a really funny one in reference to the cops kicking in his door and not helping him repair it. And these songs went viral, and this footage that he used to create the music videos for these songs went viral and were very popular. However, in March 2023, several Adams County deputies sued him for invasion of privacy. These are the people who executed the warrant. Sued him for invasion of privacy and defamation, claiming Afroman showing their faces caused them serious alarm and distress. So this is some really pathetic stuff. And like the cops will show you when they're raiding you on their own footage, but if you show them, then they have a right to be alarmed and distressed and embarrassed about it and sue. But if they do that to you, you don't have that right. Like that's the kind of precedent that's being set here. That the cops uh, are this protected class where they're beyond reproach. They're public servants and they can be recorded doing their duties. There is nothing illegal about that. Because if anyone's giving them harassment or threatening them based off those music videos, that's not on Afroman. That's on those individuals making the threats. So they should be suing those individuals for making threats against them or pursuing criminal charges against them, as opposed to taking Afroman to civil court based solely on the fact that he has money. That's it. If he didn't have money and he wasn't successful, none of this would happen. None of them would have sued. And it's absurd because you, if they can film you, you should be able to film them, and you can. And Afroman wasn't doing anything wrong. He was simply expressing his constitutional rights to freedom of speech and expression. And that's what he was doing in the song. And his videotaping of the instance was for his own safety and his own protection, just in case the police planted something or got aggressive and said he got aggressive first and altered the body count for his own safety. And he was well within his legal rights to do that. Well, entities taking him to court, state, local. I'm pretty sure it's like local, like a body representing the Adams County deputies. However, it may be they may have like all gotten together and done a private suit against him personally from them. However, they may be represented by someone who could have been appointed by the local, the county to do it. I'll have to double check on that, but I'm fairly certain that is the case. Yeah, no worries. Ava, glad you're sticking around with us. So Afroman counterclaimed, saying that the police damaged his property and stole money. And sadly, this was dismissed. And it doesn't surprise me that they did this because, you hear so many stories of police overstepping and being corrupt and people in power in general. And I think with all the Epstein stories, I think that the public's confidence and the public's trust in people who are in positions of power and authority has really, really gone down. And cases like this really don't help that. you can have 1,000 good cops, but but have one bad one in the midst of them, and it makes them all look bad. They're very much a sum of their own parts, and it's the same with politicians. Uh, so that's why anyone in kind of power is I think nowadays put under the spotlight, and analyzed more, and rightfully scrutinized more than they ever were. Because I think that we as a society have realized the concept of untouchable and uncriticizable people is very dangerous, and sets a very dangerous precedent, and makes people essentially untouchable. And there's a certain type of person, predators, who you allow them that ability, and they'll do some of the most horrific things you could ever imagine. And that's why we need to stand up to government tyranny, or corruption in authority, wherever it may show its head. Because one day it's Afroman, the next day it's me, the next day it's Ava, the next day it's anybody else who's watching and listening. We are all Afroman, so to speak. And I believe it's our duty to stand up to corruption, like I said, wherever it shows its ugly head. And the AC. Oh, glad you could join us, Amber. Glad you could join us. You missed our discussion of Carolyn Merricks. I've got to take a picture down actually, from my thing there. The branding thing, the logo. Sorry. And here's Afroman. Yeah. You missed my Carolyn Merricks coverage, so maybe on the replay you can check that out, maybe, because I think you'd really enjoy the coverage that I did in the discussion of that case. I think you'll find it really interesting, Amber. And now we're on to Afroman, the guy who did the song "Because I Got High." You know that one. Uh, glad you could join us. Yeah, we're talking about his current court situation. Now he's been sued by several Adams County deputies who executed a search warrant on his home, um, based on, and nothing was found that incriminated him based on off that search warrant. And he filmed them and made songs mocking them, and parodying the whole thing. And it blew up and went viral. Oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah. Something told me that you would know that song. Not saying anything in particular, but something gave me a little hint. You might be a little familiar with it. Yeah, it's a good one. Uh, Well, yeah, he his home was raided, and he made some songs, showing the officers, making fun of them, and it went viral. And the officers didn't really like that very much. And I was saying, Amber, how it's all right for the police to film us when they, raid our homes or get us at a traffic stop and post it. But the other way around, and they lose their shit, and it's just another classic case of people in power thinking they can treat us like shit, and that we're not allowed to treat them like shit back. And hell, this isn't even treating them like shit. Afroman was recording so that they couldn't say that he got all aggressive on them, and then they, kill him, or beat him, or give him, worse charges, or God forbid, plant something like we know police like to do. And in an age where, as I was saying, trust in authority is so low, cases like this really, really don't help the police and the people in positions of power. They really, really don't. And the ACLU, the American Council for Civil Liberties, or the American Civil Liberties Union, yeah, American Civil Liberties Union in Ohio, supported Afroman's claim, Afroman claiming his constitutional rights to expression, freedom of expression, are being violated by the suit, which I completely agree. The cops have absolutely no right to try and infringe on Afroman's First Amendment rights to express himself. He has every right, I think, to counterclaim based on that. That they are, by definition of filing this, violating his constitutional rights, and it sets a really dangerous precedent, as the ACLU said, so for where people who are, videotaping police or criticizing law enforcement or those in position of power, which we have absolutely every right to do in a democracy. This isn't a dictatorship. This isn't Stalinism. We have every right to put politicians and law enforcement on blast, and to, we have every right to mock them as well. Their fifis were getting hurt, and they decided to sue him because he had money, and they're that money hungry, that they're trying to sue him after Afroman accuses that the police actually stole money from his home that he actually didn't get back, claiming that they were seizing it when no charges were filed. So there's no right for them to seize it. They can't, if they seized it to investigate it, they would have to have given it him back. But he's saying he didn't get it back. But as I said earlier, sadly, that was dismissed by the judge, which I think is outrageous. But it doesn't surprise me too much. The power protects itself, and a lot of the times these judges are just as corrupt as the cops. Like, look at the Karen Reed case with Bev. She did absolutely everything she could to try and get Karen Reed put away, and giving the prosecution all kinds of favoritism and benefits. So, we see it in many cases where the judges are just not objective at all and not impartial at all. Oh, absolutely. Judges are full of power, control, and corruption. I completely agree, Amber, that they're lackeys of the state, and they just do as they're told. There are a few good judges that I've come across in my time, but few and far between. Same with cops, you know what I mean? Like, I have come across a few decent police officers, but very, very few. I have a much higher opinion of the military. People who've served in the military, I just find are better people, because really they're not like the stooges of authority. They kind of understand better the way the politicians play their game, and made them, go out and fight the wars. So I think soldiers and people who've served in the army, and other branches of the military, have a much more nuanced view of power and authority and the way it works, and are much more like us, the people, than the cops, the judges, the prison wardens, the lawyers, the politicians, everybody like that. So in regards to phases of authority, my favorite are military personnel. I find them the easiest to get along with. And the trial has started with Afroman hilariously coming to court dressed in a United States flag suit, as he's doing, to highlight his belief in liberty and the Constitution and his rights as an American. And also he's continuing to make musical parodies and making a general mockery of the whole situation, because to him it's very serious that his rights are being infringed upon, but he's not going to let it kill his spirit. He's going to keep being happy and having fun and making music like he enjoys, and being wacky and silly, and making people laugh and amuse them, because that's who he is. He's not going to let the system take away his identity and his personality. And as an artist, that's the biggest thing that we have. That's our biggest weapon. Is our music, is our message, is the way we communicate how we feel and how we look at the world, and we get it out there. And if that helps people, and if that amuses people, that's an amazing feeling. There's nothing better as a musician, and obviously I am one. It's what I do for a living, mainly, more than anything else. It's what I've gotten the most money for in my life. I've barely made any money on in other areas. It's where I've gotten it the most from. But more the money really is insignificant. It's the appreciation and the gratitude that you get from other people, and when they tell you that your music really, makes them laugh, makes them cry in a good way, or makes them uh, gives them energy, helps them get up in the morning, or speaks to them in a way where it feels like it was talking directly to them. Anything like that, or that it just helps them take their mind off bad shit and gets them through the day. Anything like that is the biggest compliment you can get, and it is liberating, and it does make you feel stronger as a person and as a human being. And you do feel like you've really done something for the world. And I'm pretty sure that that's what Afroman feels, and his defiance in the face of being sued by by the sheriff's deputies, and having this level of harassment from the law is very, very inspiring to me. And I do think that music is the ultimate form of rebellion. I think that music can really show and uncover the truth and the true feelings that we have deep down that we're not always able to express for fear of offending people, or being seen as different, or being controversial, like I say, or whatever. It's a space where we can really speak our minds. I think that like I said, it's the biggest weapon we have, and I'll never stop using it. And I'm glad that Afroman isn't stopping using it. I think it's an amazing thing, and I'll be continuing to follow uh, this case, this trial as it goes on, because he's been basically in this legal fight for 3 years now, and but despite this, he's not let it slow him down. I think many other artists would be bogged down by all this and wouldn't have the inspiration to keep making music. But from my own perspective, whenever things get difficult in my life, it always just fuels me to be more creative. I think there's a lot of us artists, a lot of us musicians, when we're given that adversity, um, we just use it as fuel. And sportsman, I'm a sportsman as well. I play rugby and quite a few other sports, and it's the same with that. You get some adversity, you get something. When life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. It could be considered a bit of a uh, an overused saying, but it's true. Uh, an Afroman situation, he's gotten this adversity of having his home raided, but as a result of it, he had two big hits on his hands, two songs that went viral, and I heard those songs. I heard uh, "Will You Help Me Repair My Door" and "Lemon Pound Cake," and I hadn't heard anything from him since, because I got high. So this has what could have been a career-ending, life-destroying uh, ordeal, he's turned into a second lease to life. And he said in court 2 days ago, he said, or a day ago, yes, a day ago, he said, look, I've performed shows in every single state in the United States of America. And that's a huge feat. uh, I know very few artists who actually make it to every single state in the union. That's a huge deal, especially some of the more obscure states, like Maine and Wyoming and North and South Dakota and Alaska and Hawaii. All these kind of more out of the way, lesser visited places, or Delaware even, which is often forgotten, and all these kinds of. But the fact that he actually has performed in all of these states, it just shows you how much he's in love with his music and his art. And the police really picked, the authorities over in Adams County, Colorado, really picked a bad adversary, because this guy, they're not going to break his spirit. They can smash his door in, but they're not going to break his spirit. And music is the ultimate defiance, as I say. and it's a really good way to stick it to the man. As Jack Black says in School of Rock, it's sticking it to the man. And I haven't, I couldn't think of a case in recent times of a musician sticking it to the authorities as much as Afroman, and that is something that you don't see as much anymore with musicians these days. They're all, a lot of them are very corporate and controlled and safe. And back in the old days of rock and roll and in jazz and blues and punk, these guys, they got into situations with the law. They were like outlaws almost, modern day outlaws in a sense, always getting arrested, always, for not for serious things, but for, smashing up hotel rooms, getting into bar fights and drugs and all kinds of craziness like that. Although obviously, like for me personally, I try to stay away from the hard drugs and all that. I don't do that anymore, and I still like to have a good time. And there's nothing wrong with raising a bit of hell now and then. And I think the world needs a few more hell raisers, the good kind rather than the bad kind. You see the same people that would condemn Afroman and would condemn Keith Moon for throwing TVs out of his hotel room, and would condemn the Beatles for setting condoms on fire in Germany and all this kind of stuff. Are the same people, who are the moral figures in society, that were supposed moral figures, all of whom we now know are up to their knees in like sex trafficking and all kinds of debauchery and fucked up shit, way more fucked up and way much more of a problem than anything that these rock and rollers or these musicians get up to, of that era, of that ilk, you know what I mean, of just hellraisers. It's and that's the thing. It's they condemn what you can see is always going to be a lot more tame than what you can't. It's the stuff that's going on behind the scenes that they keep from us. That's the stuff we've got to worry about. People openly just smashing up hotel rooms and living a party lifestyle isn't something that we should be concerned with, and it isn't something that the press should obsess over. But they do. They do, because they like this whole routine of let's build people up and then knock them down, like they do with Britney Spears, like they do with how many other countless stars. They want this kind of thing, and they find it to be, you know, uh, really, uh, it sells papers. It grabs people's attention, and I don't really understand why. I think that if I was in the mainstream media, probably why I'm not in the mainstream media, I would just be wanting to uncover all this Epstein stuff and all the sex trafficking with the elites. I wouldn't concern myself with the private lives of celebrities if all they're doing is, partying and getting high and just having fun. This is trivial. This is nothing. This isn't something we should concern ourselves with. But the Afro Man case certainly highlights that authorities think that they're beyond reproach and beyond criticism, and they certainly aren't. And they have to remember, despite the fact that the police are always overstepping and always, misusing their powers. Same with the politicians, and that's the precedent that's set. It's all from the top down. The reason the police can be so corruptible and so untrustworthy is because the politicians are the same, and even more so, and higher up the chain. That's how it is, and that's the world we live in. And if the people at the top were a lot cleaner and a lot more, of purer intent and honest, then we wouldn't have more corruption further along down the line. I really do believe that, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about it. But Afroman, I fully support you in your cause, and I know that my viewers do as well. And I just think it's a really shitty situation that he's in, and it's something I'd expect to hear from the UK, not from the United States of America. And we can't let this stuff creep into America. We can't. let it happen. Britain is a dystopian hellhole, and the people have such little civil liberties and are so, hooked to the government and have to do what the government say, and the government have ultimate power over people's lives and what they think and what they say. Complete total communism, basically. And we can't let that creep into America, and I think that the best type of society is the one where you can criticize and put the people in power on notice, and the limits of that are not restricted, so long as you're not threatening them. You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't be an issue. All he was doing was making fun of them, and these are supposed to be cops, for God's sake. Like, hard. They're supposed to be hardened cops. Like, they deal with violent crime all the time, and just having a rapper or a musical artist make fun of them in a music video, that's gonna haunt them at night. No, if I was a cop, I'd actually love it. It would be cool. I'd find it cool. I'd find it like I've been immortalized in something. Even if it was mocking me, I'd take it in good fun. You know what I mean? Because that's the best way to take it. And as for the threats, obviously, that have been directed towards the deputies, they were never, as I said earlier in the live, sent to them from Afroman himself. He was never threatening them in these things. He was mocking them. He was making fun of them, and he had every right to. They kicked his door in. Based off a warrant that had accusations in that had no merit. He never kidnapped anyone. He wasn't drug trafficking. There was no evidence of this. This is complete false intelligence that they had, and they should have actually looked into things a bit more before just busting in like that. And hell yeah, they should have paid for his door. They should have repaired his door. There needs to be way more accountability to law enforcement. Absolutely. But thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you are and when you are. It's been good to get through all these two cases and to just discuss them, really. And now, obviously, with the Afroman case, it's a little different than what we're usually covering. It's a civil case. It's a little different than the type of criminal cases that we discuss, but it is still true crime, and I like having the ability to do and cover different kinds of crimes, other than just murders, because I think it's important to balance things out, because not everybody likes to hear about blood and guts all the time. It's nice to balance it out with something more lighthearted, like with the Afroman story. Of course, it's a very serious story about him having his civil rights liberties, potentially taken away from him. And it's a very serious topic, but he's taking it all in good fun, as he does, and he's putting on a show for us in the court. And I'll continue to follow the trial and keep you all posted when there are new developments. And I hope that there will be some new developments soon in the Carolyn Merricks case as well, that we discussed earlier. And Amber, since you joined us late, I really hope that you go back and check out the replay, the first half an hour that I did on Carolyn Merricks' case, former Playboy Bunny, who was murdered and stabbed, and just me discussing how her background to her case, who she was, and also the kind of dark underbelly to Playboy, where there are so many murders linked to it. There's so many ex-employees of the company in whatever guise that have been murdered, so many women that knew Hef that have turned up dead. It's just insane. And I'll certainly be covering more Playboy related true crime cases moving forward. And as for future lives this week, I will be doing a live over the weekend at some point, either Saturday or Sunday, about the Cotton Club murders and Roy Raiden and that whole thing. And this happened, and this involves Hollywood producers, a lot of cocaine, Uh, John Holmes, the porn actor, very famous porn actor. Hugh Hefner's mentioned in this story. It's like a Hollywood murder true crime story, and it's a wild ride. I listened to a podcast series about it um, on um, on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and I'll link the name of it and do a community post about it. But the Cotton Club murders are something that's really really deep and out there, and there's a lot of different angles on it, and I hope you'll be with us for that on either Saturday or Sunday, and hopefully we'll have some guests as well. So yeah, thanks for listening while you've been cooking, Amber. Yeah, Ava, who was in here earlier, was listening while she was cooking dinner as well. So I feel like I'm I'm the dinner show this evening. So yeah, I've already had my dinner. I had some pizza, some very keeping it Italian, Amber. And you know me, I like my Italian food. But yeah, thanks for everyone for being here, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Bye.